Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Chaitanya Caritāmrta overview class. Thank you for joining in. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. We are discussing from Chaitanya Caritāmrta, Ādī-Līlā. We are on chapter 7, entitled The Lord Chaitanya and Five Features. And in this chapter, we have discussed how Lord Chaitanya, he, after taking sannyas, he went to Vrindavan. On the way, he crossed Varanasi, and there he heard all the Mayavadi sannyasis. They were criticizing him, but he didn't, take note of that. He went ahead and stayed in Vrindavan for a month, and then on the way back to Jagannath Puri, he came to Varanasi, and there he had this intention of delivering these Mayavadis. Only Mayavadis were remaining. All the other people, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could deliver. Mayavadi karmanishta kutarkikagan nindaka pashandiyat paduya adham. Say Sevba Mahadaksha Dhaya Palaya Yevanyaya Tasabar Chuite Narila. So all these people, they were trying to run away, but Mahaprabhu took sannyas and Mahaprabhu, he delivered them all. But Mayavadis was still remaining. So Mahaprabhu, he took sannyas and he stayed in Varanasi to deliver all these Mayavadis. And these Mayavadis, headed by Prakashananda Saraswati, they were invited by a Brahmana, and this Brahmana invited Mahaprabhu also. And these sannyasis, these Mayavadi sannyasis, they asked, why are you dancing? Bhavuke feres and bhavukya rasane. You are moving with all the sentimentalists like a sentimental person. Nakara Vedanta part, you are not studying Vedanta. So then Mahaprabhu told, oh, my guru has told me that you cannot study Vedanta, you are a fool. So please chant the holy names. And Mahaprabhu, he gave such wonderful explanation and he showed his effulgence. All the Mayavadis, they were really impressed and surprised and actually affected by the power and the influence of Mahaprabhu. But then they said, why are you not studying Vedanta? What is the problem with that? Why you don't study the Shariraka Bhashya? Then Mahaprabhu started explaining, what is this Shariraka Bhashya? What is this Mayavad philosophy? And in the last class, we discussed about this Parinamavad and Vivartavad. So we had completed till text number 23. So in this section, Mahaprabhu is telling that Shankaracharya, he accepted them. So what he said, that theory of transformation of the Lord, no, it is not possible. Lord never gets transformed. And he said, Lord has no energies. So Lord has no energies and Lord never gets transformed. So what is this world? What are these living entities? He said, this is all illusion. There is nothing else but illusion, you know. But then Mahaprabhu says, this is what Shankaracharya called as Vivartavad. Vivartavad means illusion. But the proper example of illusion, Mahaprabhu says, Vastutah Parinamavad Seita Praman Deha Atma Buddhi E Vivartera Sthan. So what is actual Parinamavad? What is actual illusion? He says actually transformation of energy is a proven fact and everybody accepts it that energy gets transformed. But what is illusion is when the living entity, when the soul starts identifying with the body, that is actually Vivarta. Otherwise, Supreme Lord is opulent in all respects. He is Shadaishwarya Purna. He is full of all the energies. If somebody says Lord has no energy, oh, he has not understood the Vedanta. So therefore, he said, only because people, they identify themselves with the body, that is actually the Vivartavad. That is illusion. This world is not illusion. Living entities are not illusion. That's what Shankaracharya and all the Mayavadis, they say, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. This world is illusion. But Mahaprabhu said, no, no, no. Supreme Lord is having all the potencies. Shadaishwarya Purna. He has unlimited potencies. That means he's a person. And then Mahaprabhu gives a simple example. If you want to understand what is this, transformation of energy, and because Mayavadis, they say Lord Supreme Absolute can never get transformed into matter. This material world cannot come from the Supreme Lord. So, and then they say this world is illusion. But Mahaprabhu gave a simple example. He said, just see the example of touchstone, Chintamani. This touchstone, when it touches even iron, it turns into gold. But the touchstone remains the same. So, if you can see this, even in a material object, touchstone always remains the same. Touchstone never gets affected, although it transforms iron into gold. So what is the problem in accepting that Supreme Lord, who has unlimited potencies, he can create material thing? Prakrita vastu yadi achintya shakti hoye, Ishwarera achintya shakti the ki vismay. So he gives a simple example. If you see this Chintamani, what is Chintamani? It is just material object, Prakrita vastu. So if Prakrita vastu shows such inconceivable power that it can turn iron into gold but doesn't get transformed itself. So what is the problem in accepting the Supreme Lord? Ishwarera chintya shakti the ki vismay. So what is the astonishment in accepting that, oh, how can Lord create something material? An ordinary material thing can transform some other element. So why Lord cannot transform? And Prabhupada gives a very, very beautiful purport here. Says, the argument of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can be easily understood by taking the example of sun. So if you see the sun is the closest of what we can say it is a cause of everything, but it has no cause. Simple understanding, right? Everything in this world is coming because sun is giving light, all the vegetations, and if sun is not there, you will not be able to survive. So sun is the cause of everything, but sun has no cause. Nobody can say, oh, sun is created or sun is getting energy from somewhere. No. Sun is the very closest example of independent. Is a cause of all causes and it has no cause. So that is how we have to understand. Prabhupada writes, Mayavadis, they misinterpret this Vedanta so much, as if Krishna and Vyasadeva didn't know what to write. As if Krishna and Vyasadeva didn't know what they were speaking or writing. So therefore, some person needed to give the interpretation. No. Prabhupada writes, please don't spend time in all this word jugglery. Therefore, one should, Prabhupada writes, therefore we have written this Bhagavad Gita as it is. And then he says, what is, so these Mayavadis, they have chosen some Mahavakyas. Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, Tattvam Asi. All these are they call that these are Mahavakyas. Why these are Mahavakyas? Because you can easily misinterpret them. Tattvam, you are that. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, everything is Brahman. But Mahaprabhu writes that, what is actual Mahavakya? Omkar is a Mahavakya mentioned in the Vedas. That is a supreme Mahavakya. And what is this Omkar? So Mahaprabhu gives a wonderful explanation of what is this Omkar. Omkar is the basis of all the Vedic literatures. Is the basis of all the Vedic sound vibrations. And therefore this Omkar is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is a sound representation of the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada gives so many quotations from Bhagavad Gita. He quotes 8th chapter, 13th verse. Om ityekaksharam brahma vyaharan mamanusmaran yah prayati tyajandeham sayati paramam gatim. Om iti ek akshara mantra. Anybody who remembers this Om, ek akshara mantra, at the time of leaving his body, sayati paramam gatim, he will attain the supreme destination. But Prabhupada writes, these Mayavadis, they can't understand these simple facts. And therefore they keep, doing all sorts of word jugglery. They don't understand the simple philosophy mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, but still they call themselves as Vedantists. Bhagavad Gita very clearly says, Vedaisha sarvairahameva vedyo. By study of all the Vedas, I am to be known. And these Vedantis don't know Krishna. These Mayavadis, they don't know Krishna. Still they are calling themselves as Vedantists. And therefore Prabhupada gives a very funny purport here. He says, that's why we sometimes call them as Vedanti. Vedanti means without teeth. Why without teeth? Because these Mayavadi philosophers and scholars, when they come in front of the Vaishnava scholars and acharyas, with their philosophy, with their commentary, they have broken teeth of all these Mayavadis. That's why they have become Vedanti. They are toothless now. So Prabhupada is very, very strong, because it hurts when a devotee is told that Lord has no form. Because devotee loves the Lord the most. Sadhavo hridayam mahyam sadhunam hridayam tuham madanyatena jananti naham tebhyo managapi. Krishna says, Lord Vishnu is telling to Durvasa, devotees are in my heart and I am the heart of my devotees. So whatever is closest to our heart, if that person or that thing is, damaged or harmed, will be suffering the most. So devotees, Krishna is closest to them. So if somebody says God has no form, that's trouble, that pains the most. That's why Prabhupada never leaves a chance to refute these Mayavadis. Again, Prabhupada quotes a verse from Bhagavad Gita. Om tat saditi nirdesho brahmana trividha smritaha brahmana stena vedasya yagyasya vihita pura Om Tat Sat. It comes in the 13th chapter, 17th chapter. So these three words, they are used to represent the supreme absolute truth. This Omkar, Prabhupada writes, this is also called as deliverer or Tara. So this is a Taraka. And Bhagavatam also begins with Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So there are unlimited quotations where Supreme Lord is addressed by Omkar. In the Narad Pancharatra, Prabhupada writes that in Narad Pancharatra, it is described that whole creation begins with Om. That is the power of this sound. So Omkar, it is considered the basis of all the Vedic knowledge. And then he gives another meaning of this word Omkar. So he quotes from the commentaries of the Goswami. He says, Akarenochate Krishna Sarvalaukaika Nayakaha Ukarenochate Radha Makaro Jivavachakaha. So our acharyas, they say, what is this Om? Om is made up of A, U, or Ma. If you do Sandhi Vichhed of this Om, A, U, or Ma. Akarena Uchyate Krishna. So the letter A represents Krishna, the Supreme Lord. And who is he? Sarvalokaika Nayakaha. He is the master of all the living entities, all planets, all the universes. Ukarenochate Radha. And U represents the potency of Krishna, represented by Srimati Radharani. And Makarena Jivavachakaha. And Ma represents the living entities. So this combination is a complete combination. Krishna with his potency, Srimati Radharani, and Jivas, all the marginal potency. So therefore, this represents, when this Om is pronounced, it represents Krishna's name, form, pastimes, devotees, abode, Shaktis. Everything is represented by this word Om. But Mayavadis, they are so into this word jugglery. They don't accept this Mahavakya mentioned in the scriptures. And therefore they say Om Tat Sat Tattvamasi Sarvam Kharvida Brahma Aham Brahmasmi and all that. But only Omkar is the Mahavakya which is mentioned in the Vedas. There is no other Mahavakya. There is no other word which can be called as Mahavakya in the Vedas. Prabhupada writes, whatever this Shankaracharya and all the followers of Shankaracharya are saying, they are just, making a show of their knowledge. They are just, Prabhupada writes, they are merely passing remarks. It doesn't make any difference. But because at the time of Shankaracharya, he was the only person who wrote this Bhashya commentary, and he had such powerful influence because that was Lord Shiva, and he had come for this purpose. There is no fault of Shankaracharya. Mahaprabhu explained earlier, Tara dosh nahi tayo agyakari das. Oh, he's just following the instructions of Krishna. And therefore he says, Pranava, Omkar is the Mahavakya. It is the only Mahavakya which is mentioned in the Vedas. There is no other Mahavakya. But Shankaracharya, he has just covered this, Omkar, and he has stressed another Vakyas. Prabhupada writes, this Mayavadi philosophers, they stress on other Mahavakyas like Tatattvamasi. They call them Mahavakya, but that is not real Mahavakya. And they are actually offenders. because they misinterpret the Vedas. And what is Veda? Veda is a sound representation of the Lord. And when you don't accept the Lord as it is, and if you interpret, what are you doing? That personality is offending the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada writes, you know what is the destination of such people? Tanaham dishata kruran sansareshu naradhaman Shipami ajasram asuvan ashurisveva yonishu. Krishna is telling in the 16th chapter, I cast them into hellish situations of life and they stay there life after life. So these Mayavadis, they are equivalent to demoniac people. That's what Mahaprabhu tells. That's what Prabhupada is writing, because who is a demon? Anybody who doesn't accept the Lord is a demon. And who are Mayavadis? They are not accepting the Lord. So therefore they are also demons. And therefore Mahaprabhu continues that, in all the Vedic literatures and the sutras, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And he is to be understood through all these Vedas, through all these scriptures. But Shankaracharya, what he has done? He has covered the real meaning. And he has just given indirect explanation. Sarva Ved Sutre Kare Krishnera Vidhan Mukhya Vritti Chadi Koila Lakshana Vyakhyan. Lakshana, Mukhya. Direct meaning, we should never ever misinterpret. Never ever interpret if the meaning is as clear as noonday sun. That's what Mahaprabhu told to Sarvam Bhattacharya. That Vedanta, it is like a noonday sun, as clear, as self-evident as sun. But your explanations, they are like the clouds which are covering this noonday sun. So therefore Mahaprabhu says, the Shankaracharya, what he has done, he has just covered the real meaning of the scriptures. Because throughout the scriptures, it is Krishna's glory which is sung. Vede Ramayane Chaiva Purane Bharate Tatha Ādau Ante Cha Madhye Cha Hari Sarvatra Giyate. It is Krishna who is sung throughout the Vedas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, Itihasas. Ādau Ante Cha Madhye Cha. It is Krishna who is glorified everywhere. Hari Sarvatra Giyate. So the Vedic literatures, they are self-evident. And there is no need to misinterpret. But if somebody misinterprets the scriptures, then the real meaning is lost. So again and again, Prabhupada is writing, please don't misinterpret. One should never misinterpret the scriptures because they are self-evident. That's what Prabhupada tells to the lady in America when she asks, which book should I read? Which Bhagavad Gita? Prabhupada said, I could not even recommend one. Because all the authors, they have written their own speculations. Therefore, Prabhupada entitled his book as Bhagavad Gita as it is. And Mahaprabhu says that to prove their own philosophy, what Mayavadis they have done, they have given up the real, easily understood meaning. The Vedic scriptures, they are very easy. And the real meaning is very self-evident. But Mayavadis, they covered the real meaning and they gave the indirect meaning. Eimate prati sutre korena dushan shuni chamatkara hoila sannyasi ragan. In this way, when Mahaprabhu showed them how each and every verse, each and every sutra is so self-evident. Vedanta Sutra has 4 chapters and every chapter has 4 subdivisions. Mahaprabhu explained them in great detail that every sutra can be understood directly, and Shankaracharya has covered the real meaning of the sutras. Shuni chamatkara hoila sannyasi ragana. All the assembled Mayavadi sannyasis, they were astonished. They were struck with wonder hearing such explanations by Mahaprabhu. Then Mahaprabhu, and then these sannyasis, they ask third question. They make a request. They say, "Oh, Your Holiness, please, you know from us that we have no quarrel with you, and we know that your explanation of the Vedanta is perfect, and we will not quarrel with you, but we have one request, we have a question. Can you please explain in detail your understanding of Vedanta? What do you understand?" And then they say something which is very, very important. They say, we know that all this is word jugglery which is given by Shankaracharya. And we know that this is not right. But because we belong to this Shankara Sampradaya, we have to accept it. We know it is not right, and we know that this will not satisfy us. But still, we have to accept it. But now, please, you tell us, what is your understanding of this Vedanta Sutra? We want to hear your direct meaning. We have heard enough of this indirect meaning. Now, please tell us the direct meaning. Bhajagovindam, 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 Mudmate, Samprapte, Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrana Karane. That's what Shankaracharya he told. Some of the last things which he said. Oh fools, please don't engage, don't spend time in word jugglery. At the time of death, Samprapte, Sannihite Kale, all this word jugglery is not going to help you. Please take shelter of Govinda, Bhaj Govinda, Bhaj Govinda, Bhaj Govinda, Mudmate. So all these Mayavadis, when they requested Mahaprabhu, so Mahaprabhu, then he starts the direct explanation of Vedanta Sutra. And he first describes Sambandha. Entire Vedic scriptures, entire Vedic knowledge can be divided into three words, three sections: Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. Whatever we read in scriptures, whatever is there in Vedanta, Veda, Puranas, Upanishads, it is to understand these three things. What is our relationship with the Lord? That is called as Sambandha Gyan. How to establish that relationship? That is called as Abhideya. And what will you get by establishing the relationship? What is the end? Prayojana. So to begin with, Mahaprabhu, he describes four characteristics of Bhagavan. Who is Bhagavan? He says, Bhagavan is the Brihad Vastu. Brihad Vastu Brahma Kahi Shri Bhagavan Shadaishwarya Purna Parat Shadaishwarya Purna Paratatvadham. So he says, Brihad Vastu. That Brahman is the Brihad Vastu, is greater than the greatest. Brihad Vastu Brahma Kahi Shri Bhagavan. That Shri Bhagavan, that personality of Godhead is greater than the greatest. First quality. Second, Shadaishwarya Purna, is full in six opulences. Third, Paratattva Dham, he is the reservoir of all knowledge and truth. Fourth quality he describes in the 139th verse. So in two verses, 38 and 138 and 139, he describes four qualities of Bhagavan. He is greater than the greatest. Shadaishwarya Purna, he is the reservoir of truth and ultimate absolute knowledge. And the fourth thing he says, he is free from the contamination of the material world. Although Supreme Lord, because that's what Mayavadis they say, Supreme Lord, it is an illusion, but still they say Supreme Lord, when gets covered with the mode of goodness, becomes avatar. Supreme Lord never gets covered by modes. He's always supreme, he's always free. And he is the ultimate goal of all the scriptures. Vedesha sarvair hameva vidyo vedant krit veda videva chaham. And he continues that, when we speak that Supreme Lord, he is impersonal, what are we doing? We are denying his potencies. Supreme Lord is all spiritual and he has unlimited spiritual potencies. So please don't accept half-hen logic. So don't accept not half-hen logic. He says don't accept half truth. The truth should be accepted fully. If you are saying that supreme absolute truth is, all powerful, then you should accept that Supreme Lord has potencies. And he is a person. And whatever emanates from the Lord is also complete. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. That is the Ishopanishad verse. Purnam Adaha. This world is complete. Purnamidam. So Supreme Lord is complete. Adaha. Purnam idam. This world is complete. Purnat Purnamudachyate. So perfectly complete wholes come from the perfectly complete Supreme Lord. Purnasya Purnamadaya, and whatever is remaining is also complete. So therefore, Supreme Lord is always full of all the spiritual potencies. Nobody should say Supreme Lord has no potencies. No. Supreme absolute truth is full of potencies. How to know him? Only by devotional service one can know Krishna. Bhagwan prapti hetu ekari upay. Shravanadi bhakti Krishna prapti rasahai. There is only one way to approach and achieve the Supreme Lord. That is Shravanadi bhakti. And Prabhupada in the purport, he describes in detail the various limbs of devotional service. He quotes this verse, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Archanam Vandanam, Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedanam. These are the 9 limbs of devotional service. And Mahaprabhu is stressing in this verse the process of hearing. Bhagwan Prapti Hetu Ekari Upay. There is only one way to achieve the Supreme Lord. What is that? Shravanadi Bhakti. It all begins with hearing. That is the beginning of our devotional service. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunaya Shravanadi Suddha Chitte Koraya Uday. So when we hear, then the dormant love which is there in everyone's heart gets awakened. Prabhupada writes, our Krishna consciousness movement acts on this principle. And we have seen practically happening. Prabhupada writes, we are just giving a chance to people to hear about the Supreme Lord, and we are giving prasad. And so many people from all over the world, they are becoming devotees. That's what Prabhupada started Krishna consciousness movement with. He just sat under this, Tompkins Square Park, and he started doing kirtan with his eyes closed, intense. He had no kartal also. He had a bongo drum. He just played that. And for, hours, just with eyes closed, intense kirtan. And when he opened his eyes, he saw so many people dancing around him. And it was not some fancy, very, very, like today's, some of the devotees, they sing fancy tunes. Prabhupada sang such simple tune, but that was not of this material world. One of the people, he said, this personality, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, his speech, this tune which he has invented, so this personality, he heard the tune, the tape of recording of Prabhupada, and he said, this tune of Hare Krishna mantra is not from this world. It is out of this world. It is directly coming from the spiritual realm. So what Prabhupada has done is, he has brought directly from the spiritual world a tune of Hare Krishna mantra. Aiche prema aiche nritya aiche hari dhvani, kaha nahi dekhi yaar kaha nahi suni. भट्टाचार्य कहे मधुर वचन, चैतन्य रस सृष्टि प्रेम संकीर्तन. So this Mahaprabhu, this Prema Sankirtan is created by Mahaprabhu. It is a manifestation of the pastimes and the power of Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada has brought that in this world. Prabhupada writes, we have seen, just gave a chance to hear and prasadam to eat. And look, people from all over the world, they are responding. And Prabhupada could say it with such conviction because he did it. And therefore he says, that is Sambandha Gyan. And by practicing this bhakti, this regulated devotional service, one can awaken the love of God. And that process is called as Abhideya. Jivara Sarupo Hoye Krishnera Nityadas. Prabhupada writes, very simple definition of what is Abhideya. Jivara Sarupo Hoye Krishnera Nityadas. When we realize this, I am servant of Krishna. When we are convinced, we will not realize it. When we are convinced of our relationship about our relationship with Krishna, that I am servant of Krishna. When you are convinced about it, that is called Sambandha. And then one acts accordingly to establish that relationship again. That is called as Abhideya. To establish the Sambandha again with the Supreme Lord. And then we attain Prayojana Siddhi. Prabhupada writes, these Mayavadis, they miss even the first stage of self-realization because they don't accept Krishna itself. They don't accept that Krishna has a form, God has a form. So they miss the first step. But still they are so puffed up because they are so austere, they are renounced, they think themselves liberated, but they will surely fall down. Ye anyarvindaksha vimukta manina tvayasta bhava avishuddha buddhayah aruhya krichrena param padam tata patantyada anadriti shumadangrayah. So this is a verse spoken by Brahmaji where he is saying, Ye anye arvind aksha vimukta, anybody who does not accept and take shelter of the lotus-eyed Lord, they think themselves to be liberated. Vimukta manina, wo maan lete hain ki hum mukt ho gaye hain. But their intelligence is avishuddha. Their intelligence is contaminated. You know what happens to them? Aruhya krichrena param padam tata. Although from external level, they live a very high pure life. But because they offend the Supreme Lord, patanti adha, they again fall down. So what is the use of all that? Krishnera charana hoy yadi anurag, Krishna vinu anatra tar nahi rahe rag. Krishnera charana hoy yadi anurag. If one develops attachment at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, Krishnera charana hoy yadi anurag. You know what happens? Krishna vinu anyatra nahi rahe rag. He loses all the taste for material things and people of the world. Prabhupada writes, this is a test of advancement in Krishna consciousness. Yadanu Ādī-Līlā karna piyusha viprut sakrit adan vidhuta dvandva dharma vinashta sapadigrih kutumbam dīnamutsrajya dīna Bhavaiha vihanga bhikshucharyam charanti. The gopis are telling, Anybody who hears the pastimes of Krishna, Karna Piyusha, the nectarine pastimes of Krishna, if somebody hears, you know what happens? Sapadi Grih Kutumbam Deenam Utsrijya Deena. They give up their wretched families and themselves become wretched. Pahavaihaviyanga Bhikshucharyam Charanti. There are so many people in Vrindavan roaming like beggars, like birds from one tree to another tree. Anybody who develops attraction to the lotus feet of the Lord, for sure he will develop detachment from this material world. Krishna Pad Padma Gandha Jai Jan Paye Brahma Lok Adi Sukh Tare Nahi Bhai. Nityanand Prabhu is telling about Raghunath Das Goswami. Who is Raghunath Das Goswami? He was the only heir to billionaire father and uncle, Govardhan Majumdar, Hiranya Majumdar. And he gave up. He had beautiful wife. He had best of the opulent facilities. But because he developed attraction, because he served Haridas Thakur, and by serving Haridas Thakur, a great devotee of the Lord, he developed attachment to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. That is the power of Sadhu Sangha. Sangoya samsrite hetu asatsu vihito dhiya saiva sadhu shukrito moksha dwaram apavritam. Anybody who, everybody in this world, they have attachment for the things of the world. If we just repose the same attachment to the devotees, we'll get liberated. So Raghunath Das Goswami, because he served Haridas Thakur, he developed such attachment to the Lord that he developed intense detachment from this material world. Mother, she's telling to father, please, keep this child, boy, bind him with ropes and keep him. Father is saying, what's the use of binding him with ropes? Indra Saima Ishwarya. So mother says, Putra Batul Hoilaiha Rakha Bandhiya. Tar Pita Kahe Tare Nirvinna Hoya. Mother is saying, Pagal ho gaya beta, bandh ke rakho. Father says that what's the use of binding him? Indra Sama Ishware Stri Apsarasam. Ei sab bandite nari leka yaraman. He has opulence like Indra, he has beautiful wife like Apsara, still he is running away. Who can bind a madman of Lord Chaitanya? Chaitanya Chandrera Kipahaya Chaihare, Chaitanya Chandrera Batul Ke Rakhi Te Pare. Who can keep the madman of Lord Chaitanya? This detachment from the material world is a test of advancement in spiritual life. Bhakti pareshanu bhavu virakti anyatra cha. Detachment has to come. Prabhupada writes, but these Mayavadi philosophers, they are supposed to be very advanced. Externally, they are very detached, but internally, their desire to become Lord is so powerful, so great, that all the external detachment doesn't help them. Prabhupada writes, devotional service is the only practical way to get liberated. The Mayavadis, the Mayavad philosophy is just mental speculation, Prabhupada writes. It will not help anyone. And Prabhupada says that, we have seen those Mayavadis, they may tell that they are liberated, they are detached from the material world. But, in the end, what they do, they engage in philanthropic activities, public welfare activities, opening schools, hospitals, digging well, distributing food. These are all pious activities. Prabhupada writes a very, very powerful line, and we should understand it clearly and properly. He says, when a devotee develops in devotional service, he has no longer any attachment to such philanthropic activities. So we have to understand that as devotees, we also distribute food. That food is not an ordinary food, that is prasad. That is not generating karma for us. That is, giving devotional service, the chance, sukriti. So therefore, as devotees, we may be doing some social welfare activities, but as we know, the consciousness matters the most. Why we are doing what we are doing. If we are doing something to bring people close to Krishna, that is not a philanthropic activity. That is devotional service. And then Mahaprabhu says, Panchama Purushartha se prema mahadhan Krishnera madhurya ras karai aswadan. And by practice of this Sambandha Abhidheya devotional service, you know what is Prayojan? Panchama Purushartha. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, these are the four Purusharthas. What is Pancham Purushartha? Prema Mahadhan. Love of God is the Pancham Purushartha. And by developing this Pancham Purushartha, by awakening of this love of God, you know what happens? Krishnera madhurya raskarai aswadan. One can actually attain the platform of conjugal love. Tasting. Even in this life, we can experience Krishna's highest ecstasies. Prabhupada writes, you know, for Mayavadis, Mukti is the supreme. For them, Mukti is the be-all and end-all of everything. They have nothing beyond Mukti. But it comes in Sanatana Goswami's instructions. Mahaprabhu tells, out of thousands of jnanis, one is liberated. Out of thousands of those who are liberated, one becomes a devotee. Koti mukta madhye durlabh. Out of thousands of those who are liberated, Koti Jnani, Koti Mukta Madhya Durlabh, Ek Krishna Bhakta. One out of thousands become devotee of Krishna. Dharma Projita Kaitavatra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. Prabhupada writes, you know, who can know Krishna? Only a Nirmatsara, only a non-envious person can know Krishna. And just see these Mayavadis, they are supremely envious of Krishna. They can't tolerate Krishna having anything better. They reject the form of Krishna. So Prabhupada writes, their prime occupation is to offend Krishna. So how can they be liberated? It is not possible. Prabhupada tells, you know, there was the greatest philosopher in India, and he is telling, when Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana Bhavat Bhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru Mame Vashi Satyam Te, surrender unto me, become my devotee, offer worship unto me. This philosopher says you don't have to surrender to Krishna, but we have to surrender to the person who is within, to the absolute truth who is within Krishna. That is enviousness. They can't accept Krishna as a form. Prema hoite Krishna hoye nija bhakta vash. Prema hoite paye Krishna ras seva sukha ras. Mahaprabhu tells, when you develop this love of God, Krishna becomes controlled by his devotees who love him. Gopis are telling Krishna, oh Krishna, if you come and dance, I'll give you this sweet. Krishna dances. Oh Krishna, if you sing, I'll give you this butter. Krishna sings. Gopi bhisto bito nrityat bhagavan balavat kvachit udgayati kvachin mugda tadvasho daru yantra. Just like a wooden doll, completely under the control of his devotees. And Krishna tells, you know, that's why I have come in this world and that's why I'm performing all these pastimes. To show to the whole world how I have become controlled by my devotees, because I like to be controlled by my devotees. Evam sandarshita hyanga harina bhrityavashyata swavashena pi krishnena yasya edam sa ishwaram vashi. That personality who is controlling the controllers of the universe, he comes under the control of his own devotees. That's why Krishna has come. He is ready to become the charioteer of his devotees. He is becoming the protector. He is becoming messenger. He is a whole night watchman. Saratya parashad sevana sakhya dautya virasananugamana stavana pranaman. Krishna is doing everything. Sarathi, parashada, sevaka, sakhya, duta, virasana means protecting everything. Why? Krishna becomes controlled by his devotees. Krish prema hoite pae Krishnera seva sukharas. Seva sukha. The happiness of serving Krishna is so great that Krishna also gets bewildered. These devotees, this Radharani and all the gopis and the gopas, they are serving me, but they are becoming more happier. I want to taste that. That's why Krishna appears in this world, to experience what Radharani is experiencing. Saukhyam chasya madanubhavata kidrisho vanavaiva. What is that in me which these devotees are experiencing? And what is the pleasure of service? So therefore, Mahaprabhu tells, Krishna becomes controlled by prema. Sambandha abhideya prayojananam 18 artha sarva sutre paryavasan. All the Vedic literatures, the Vedanta Sutra, it can be divided into three things: Sambandha, Avideya, and Prayojan. Otherwise, we have been defeated in this material world so many millions of lifetimes. We have tried to conquer, we have tried to become Krishna, we have tried to become the controllers, but we have not become successful since millions of lifetimes. We have tried so much. Parabhavasta vadabodha jato yavanna jigyasata atma tattvam. Parabhava. Again and again we have been defeated, but still we have not, and we have not still realized the futility of our struggle. But if we practice this prema bhakti, process of devotional service involving sambandha, abhideya, and prayojan, then we can come out of this. Therefore, one should begin inquiries, spiritual inquiries, athato brahma jigyasa. Otherwise, all the endeavor which people are doing, it is just a useless waste of labor. Dharma svanushtita pumsam vishwaksena kathasuya na utpadye dratimadi shrama evahi kevalam. Dharma, all the dharmic activities, varnashram dharma, why this has to be done? Vishwaksena kathasu rati. All our practice of dharma, karma, and everything should help us come close to Krishna and develop attraction for Krishna Katha. Otherwise, it's all useless waste of labor. So that is the understanding. Shrishtasya suktasya chabuddhi dattyo avichyuto arthat kavibhir nirupito yaduttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. All the results of our activities are meant to serve the Supreme Lord. And therefore, when all these Mayavadis, they heard such wonderful explanations of Mahaprabhu, they were amazed. When they heard the explanations of Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojan, they all became very humble. And they say, oh sir, oh dear sir, you are indeed the Supreme Personality. You are Sakshat Narayan, and therefore please excuse us for our offenses. We criticized you. We spoke wrong about you. So please forgive us. So Prabhupada, he writes in the purport that this is the basic requirement of practice of bhakti, to become humble and submissive in front of the superiors. If we are thinking, I know better than you, then we can't learn. We cannot advance in Krishna consciousness. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. And because Mahaprabhu showed them mercy, that's why they could understand their mistake. Because Mahaprabhu, Lord, is so very eager to protect the devotees, to protect all the living entities. He's more eager to bring us back to the spiritual world, and we are eager to go back. Prabhupada writes, we are also following the footsteps of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very humbly says, we may not be well versed in presenting the scriptures, but because we are following in the footsteps of Acharyas and we are obedient, Prabhupada writes, because we are strictly and obediently following the instructions of our superiors, our acharyas, so therefore we know everything. Very firm conviction. Prabhupada writes, he tells, we may not be well versed, but because we are following our acharyas, therefore we know everything. That is a conviction a devotee should have. I may be imperfect, but the parampara is perfect. I am representing a bona fide parampara. I am just like a postal peon. I may have nothing, but I can give you millions of rupees only if I am a transparent via medium. That's what Prabhupada is writing. Because we are humble, sincere, submissive, obedient, and strict. These are the qualities required. Obedient and strict. If we are strict with ourselves, if we are strictly following the parampara, then nobody can stop us in spreading this message. And we will know, Dadami Buddhi Yogam, Krishna will reveal. Anybody, Krishna gives assurance, Tesham Satati Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. Anybody who surrenders unto me, follows the devotional service, I give them the intelligence. Kaviraj Goswami says, Sei hoite sannyasi re phiri gela man, Krishna Krishna nama sada karoe grahan. The minds of all the sannyasis were transformed. Phiri gela, man phir gaya. When they heard the explanations of the Vedanta Sutra from Mahaprabhu, they all were transformed and they started chanting Krishna Krishna Nam. Always they were chanting. In the purport of this 149 verse, Prabhupada gives some technical details. He tells, there are some Sahajiyas who tell that Prakashananda Saraswati and Prabodhananda Saraswati, they are same. Prabhupada very nicely gives the details of who is Prakashananda Saraswati, who is Prabodhananda Saraswati. Prabodhananda Saraswati, he was a great Vaishnava scholar, and he was a brother of this Venkat Bhatta. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on South India Yatra, so he went on South India Yatra and he was traveling. He met these two brothers, Venkat Bhatta and Tirumalaya Bhatta. And the third one was this Prabodhananda Saraswati. So this Prabodhananda Saraswati, he was a Sri Vaishnava scholar. He was a great devotee. And Gopala Bhatta Goswami, the son of Venkata Bhatta, he was the nephew of Prabodhananda Saraswati. So Mahaprabhu went on South Indian Yatra in 1433 Shakabda or 1511 AD. And Mahaprabhu met Prakashananda Saraswati in 1435. So 2 years later. So Srila Prabhupada gives a simple explanation. If Mahaprabhu met Prakashananda Saraswati, Prabodhananda Saraswati in 1433 in South India, and that time he was a Sri Vaishnava scholar, a devotee, how can the same person become a Shankaracharya follower in 2 years and meet him in Varanasi? So Prabhupada tells, oh, these are not right explanations. Prakashananda Saraswati and Prabodhananda Saraswati, they are two different people. Ei mate tasabar shami aparad Sabakare Krishna Nam Korila Prasad. Mahaprabhu, that's the reason Mahaprabhu went to Varanasi. He wanted to deliver all these Mayavadis. Ei mata tasamar shami. So Mahaprabhu, he forgave them. Krishna never takes offenses. Krishna is like that loving father who never takes offense when child kicks him. He's ready to help the child. He's ready to protect the child. So therefore, Mahaprabhu, he forgave all these Mayavadis. And Sabakare Krishna Nam, and he gave them all this Krishna Nam mantra. Therefore, Mahaprabhu is called as Mahavadanyaya. Namo Mahavadanyaya. Krishna Prem Pradayate. Anarpita Charimcharat Karunayavati Rinakalau Samarpaitum Unnat Ujjal Rasam Savakti Shriyam. That's why Mahaprabhu had come. That which was not offered for many, many years and many, many generations. Unarpit. It was not offered in the history. What? Love of God. Mahaprabhu appeared to give that to each and every one. Nahi jane sthana sthan yare tare kailadan Mahaprabhu data shiromani. Prabhupada writes, this is an example in preaching. Apani achari Prabhu shikhaimu samare. So what Mahaprabhu is doing? Mahaprabhu is teaching that, when we preach, we will find people who will criticize us, who may offend us, who may speak ill about us, but how we should behave with them, just like Mahaprabhu behaved with all these Mayavadis. Humble. Humility attracts everyone. And that's how Mahaprabhu attracted their hearts. He became so humble, he sat at the place where they would wash their feet. So we have to be humble. At the same time, we should be very, very, we should have very proper understanding of the Siddhanta. Prabhupada writes, they may be opposed to Krishna consciousness, but it is a duty of a preacher to induce those people who are opposing. They should induce these people to Krishna consciousness. That is a preacher. So that's what Prabhupada writes. And Prabhupada writes that although we also find so many people who are opposing our movement, but still our movement is continuing. And people from all over the world, they are taking advantage of it. Even in the remote parts, Prabhupada writes, even in the remote parts like Africa, where people had no understanding of what is Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada, he went to Africa for the first time. Brahmanand Prabhu was preaching there, and when Prabhupada, he reached there, and he washed his clothes, and he, next day morning, he went to take his clothes. They were kept for drying. He could not find his clothes. And somehow the devotees, they arranged for another set. And Prabhupada was sitting in the class, and he saw one of the devotees was wearing his kurta. Other was wearing his dhoti. Other was wearing his uttari. That was the level of these Africans. No culture. And in between the class, as Prabhupada is speaking, they would just catch one fly and they would pop it in the mouth. So there Prabhupada had to tell the fifth regulative principle: no eating flies. No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit fits, no eating flies. Prabhupada, it's just even such people are becoming devotees. That is the power of Hare Krishna mantra. So we'll stop here. We'll continue next time. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantra Sri Chaitanya Caritāmrta ki jai.